Hi, my name is Dale Turner, and I teach a variety of acoustic and electric rhythm guitar styles here at Hollywood's Musicians Institute. And that passage you just heard me picking through is a figure reminiscent of what George Harrison is playing in his own Beatles song called Here Comes the Sun. And actually I'm going to open up a little bit about George Harrison, of course, and his role in the Beatles, and then we'll look at a few examples in his playing style. But Harrison was actually the youngest of the Fab Four. When he got into the band, an interesting thing, his influences like Chet Atkins and Carl Perkins actually helped shape some of the Lennon and McCartney tunes, pulling them in a little bit more into a country-esque rockabilly feel. A lot of other guitaristic influences Harrison had also kind of helped spice up the flavor of the actual Beatles songs. You might know that at some point in the mid-60s, he was one of the first guys to pick up the Rickenbacker 360 12 string. And when he used that on tracks like A Hard Day's Night, that was real influential throughout the 60s, added a whole other dimension to the sound of Beatles music and 60s rock in general. Also in the later 60s, he got very interested into Hinduism and Indian culture. And a lot of those flavors, like exotic scales and the use of sitar, started to factor into the Beatles sound as well. So he played a huge role in actually stylizing the Beatles music. But in addition to that, he was also a great songwriter, which is saying a lot when you have somebody like Lennon and McCartney in the band. The fact that he was able to get one song on average per album is a pretty awesome accomplishment. So what we're actually going to do today is look at 3 different George Harrison songs and some examples in the style of what he's playing on guitar, and talk a little bit about the composition aspect. We'll look at Here Comes the Sun, as well as Something, and While My Guitar Gently Weeps. So we'll actually start with the While My Guitar Gently Weeps. I'm going to remove the capo here, and then we'll talk about that song's chord shapes. Okay, so here are the 7 different chords in the verses. The tune is really in A minor here. I'll talk a little bit about what's happening compositional interest-wise here, but first shape is A minor. Keep those fingers fretted. Put your pinky on the G on the 3rd fret of the E string for A minor 7 over G. Move your middle finger over to the 2nd fret of the bottom string for D9 with an F sharp in the bass, but mute the A string with the underside of your middle finger. Then on the original version of this track, he uses a thumb voicing of F like this. Then he goes back to A minor. I didn't put that in the frame because it would be kind of redundant. Then G, D, E major. Okay, a cool trademark thing about this progression here, at least in the opening 4 chords that Harrison does, that you'll find is kind of a trademark of a few of his other compositions. There's some chromatic movement. In this case here in the bass line, we have A in the bass, G in the bass, and then the chromatic movement is the successive half steps between G, F sharp, and F in the progression. Which is part of where the emotional power comes from in this song. So basically each one of those shapes you could strum in this rhythm. And you'll find you've got yourself a verse progression in the style of While My Guitar Gently Weeps. What I'd like to do though right now is show you a few extra ways you could fret a couple of these chords that George Harrison, as his career unfolded. This song came out in 1968. He performed it a lot actually when he went solo in 1970 and later. So I'm going to actually talk about a few optional fingerings you could try for some of these chords. A minor as written, A minor 7 over G as written. In some live recordings, you can actually see Harrison at this point just flip his thumb over and fret that bass note there for F sharp minor 7 flat 5. Then use the thumb voicing with the top open E string for F major 7. So you'd have and in some later live recordings, you'll actually see him, instead of playing A minor 7 over G, play C over G, like this. I should also point out an interesting thing that makes this have the powerful effect that it does. In addition to the mostly chromatic bass line, there's the fixed upper register tones through most of the chords, meaning the notes on your G and B strings are the same through the majority of these chord grips, like this. Plus, there's a killer Eric Clapton solo in the song.